What if I told you that every single thing you've done to get over them in the last few months has actually been the very thing keeping you stuck? Think about your routine lately. You've been a good student of heartbreak. You followed the checklist to the letter because that's what we're taught to do. You deleted the photos, or at least moved them to a hidden folder you promise yourself you won't look at. You unfollowed the accounts. You've been hitting the gym until your muscles ache, trying to sweat out the memory of them. You've been going out with friends, nodding along to conversations you aren't really hearing, and sitting across from strangers on dates, smiling until your jaw hurts, just to prove to the world and yourself that you're moving on. You've been performing okayness for an audience that isn't even watching. You've been trying to outrun a shadow, thinking that if you just move fast enough, fill your schedule tight enough, and stay busy enough, the ghost won't be able to catch up. But it's not working, is it? You're still here. It's a random Tuesday afternoon or a quiet Sunday morning, and the silence in the room feels heavy, like it's pressing against your chest. You're doing the work, but the knot in your stomach hasn't loosened. If anything, it's tighter. You feel embarrassed that you still care this much. You feel like you're failing a test that everyone else seems to be passing. You look at people on social media who seem to bounce back in weeks, and you wonder what is wrong with your wiring. Why is your heart refusing to follow the schedule? The truth is, you're stuck because you've been treating this like a fire you need to put out. You've been told that getting over someone is about distance and distraction. But those things are just band-aids on a wound that goes much deeper than a person's absence. Before you delete one more text, you need to understand why your brain is holding on so tightly. Because it's not for the reason you think. Let's talk about the 11 p.m. silence. You know the feeling. You've survived the day. You were productive at work. You were social at dinner. You were fine for 10 hours straight. But then the lights go out, the phone goes on the charger, and the noise of the world finally stops. And in that silence, they walk right back into your mind, uninvited. You find yourself replaying the last conversation, not the big, dramatic fight at the end, but the small, mundane ones from the middle. You wonder if there was a specific sentence where the shift happened. You scroll to their name in your contacts, not to call, but just to see it there. To remind yourself that it actually happened, that it was real, and that you didn't imagine the connection. And then comes the guilt. That sharp, stinging thought, I should be further along by now. You feel like a ghost in your own life. You're physically present at the dinner table, at the gym, or in meetings, but you're mentally living in a what-if timeline. You're grieving the future you had already mapped out, the trips you'll never take, the inside jokes that now have nowhere to go, and the version of you that felt safe and found. But here is the ruthless specificity of your pain. You aren't just missing them. You are missing the version of yourself that existed when you were with them. Think back to that version of you. When you were with them, you felt chosen. You felt like the search was finally over. When they looked at you, they held up a mirror that showed a version of you that was lovable, interesting, and enough. Now that they're gone, they didn't just take their toothbrush and their hoodies. They took the mirror. Now, when you look at yourself, you see someone who was rejected, someone who was too much or not enough. You are desperate to get them back because you think they are the only ones who can give you that lovable reflection again. You are checking their social media looking for proof that you still matter to them. Because if you still matter to them, then maybe you still matter to yourself. You are currently trying to build a bridge across a canyon of self-doubt using old memories as bricks. You think that if you can just understand why they left, you can fix the flaw in yourself that caused the exit. But that search for closure is just a trap. It's a way to keep your eyes fixed on them so you don't have to look at the empty space where your identity used to be. Now, I need you to stop. I want you to take a breath and listen to something that is going to feel like a punch to the gut, but it's the only thing that will actually save you. What if the reason you can't get over them isn't because the love was once in a lifetime? What if it's because the relationship was actually a very clever distraction from a hole that was already inside you before you ever met them? We like to think that heartbreak is a tragedy that happens to us. But more often than not, heartbreak is an exposure. It's someone finally pulling back the curtain on a secret you've been keeping from yourself for years, that you don't know how to feel whole without someone else's validation, that you've been told that time heals all wounds. That is the biggest lie in the world. Time doesn't heal anything. It just builds scar tissue over the infection. If you don't drain the infection, it doesn't matter how much time passes. you'll just carry it into the next person's life. You'll find someone who has a different name and a different face, but within 6 months, you'll feel the exact same kind of unseen or unsafe. Here is the loop you are caught in. You are trying to find a way to stop the pain without understanding where the pain is actually coming from. You think the pain is coming from their absence. You think if they sent a thinking of you text right now, the pain would vanish. And for 20 minutes, it would. You'd feel a rush of relief, a hit of dopamine, a sense of I still matter. But then, the old familiar dread would creep back in. Because that relationship wasn't the cure for your loneliness. It was just the loudest noise in the room. Think back to the very beginning. Before it was perfect, what was happening in your life? Were you feeling lost? Were you at a crossroads? We don't fall in love with people. We fall in love with the way people make us feel about our own potential. We use them as an anchor. And when the anchor breaks, we think we're drowning because the anchor is gone. We don't realize that we forgot how to swim a long time ago. That I'm going to ask you the question you've been avoiding. What did that relationship give you that you are absolutely, terrifyingly certain you cannot give yourself? Was it the feeling of being special? The safety of a plan? Whatever that thing is, that is the this you need to understand. Until you look at that, you aren't grieving a human being. You're grieving a survival strategy. I want you to imagine a house. This house is yours. You've lived in it your whole life. But for as long as you can remember, the house has been pitch black. There are no windows, and the light switches don't work. You've learned to navigate it in the dark. You know where the sharp corners of the table are. You know how to avoid tripping over the rug, but you're always a little bit bruised. You've just accepted that home is a place where you stumble through the shadows. Then, one day, someone walks into your house. They don't just walk in. They bring a sledgehammer. They knock down a massive hole in the wall. And for the first time in your life, you see the sun. You see the colors of the wallpaper. You see that there is a whole world outside. For a year, or 2, or 5, you live in that light. You think, finally, this is it. This person is the sun. You associate the light entirely with them. When you look at them, you see the reason your life finally makes sense. You feel warm for the first time. But then, they leave. And as they go, they don't just take their things, they rebuild the wall. Now, you are back in the dark. But it's not the same darkness you had before. It's 10 times worse. Because now you know what the sun looks like. Now you have a memory of the light. And that makes the shadows feel like a prison. You spend every night clawing at the bricks, screaming for them to come back and knock the wall down again. You think, if I can just get them back, I can see again. But here is the aha moment that changes everything. The person didn't bring the sun. The sun was always there outside. All that person did was show you that your wall was breakable. The warmth you felt when you were with them, that was your capacity for joy. The deep, soul-level connection you felt, that was your ability to be intimate. The feeling of home, that was you finally being allowed to see your own furniture. When they left, they took the mirror and they put back the bricks. They didn't take the sun. You are currently crying because you think they owned the light. You think you are getting over them. But what you are actually doing is mourning the fact that you think you're trapped in the dark again. You are standing in a pitch-black room holding a hammer, trying to find the specific person who broke the wall, instead of realizing that you are the one who owns the house. The reason you're crying at 3 a.m. isn't because they were the only one meant for you. It's because they were the only ones you permitted to see you. You gave them the exclusive contract to be your only source of light. Stop trying to get over the person. Start looking at the wall. The magic you felt wasn't in the collision. It was in the expansion. You expanded when you were with them. You became more. You think that expansion was a gift they gave you. It wasn't. It was an invitation you accepted. And the invitation is still on the table. But this time, the person sending it is you. So, what do you do tonight? When the 11 p.m. silence comes back and the walls feel like they're closing in, I want you to try something different. Stop the performance. Stop trying to be over it for your friends or for your social media. Sit with the feeling. But ask it a different question. Instead of asking, why did they leave? Or how do I make them come back? I want you to ask, what was I looking for in their eyes that I have been refusing to look for in my own? If you were looking for safety, where are you currently betraying yourself in your daily life? If you were looking for worth, why do you treat your own time and your own heart like they are on clearance? When you stop grieving a person and start understanding the need that person was filling, the whole thing stops being a tragedy. It becomes a curriculum. The pain doesn't disappear instantly. It's still going to hurt for a while. But the stuckness dissolves. The heavy, stagnant feeling of being in a waiting room evaporates the second you realize you aren't waiting for a person. You're waiting for yourself. You are going to be okay. But not for the reasons people tell you in Hallmark cards. You aren't going to be okay because there are plenty of fish in the sea. You aren't going to be okay because time heals all. You are going to be okay because you are about to realize that the person you've been missing so desperately is actually just the version of you that you've been afraid to be on your own. You don't need to get over them. You need to incorporate them. Take the things they taught you about yourself, the way you felt when you were being bold, the way you laughed, the way you cared, and realize. Those are your traits. They aren't theirs to take back. Tonight, don't check their profile. Check your own pulse. Remind yourself that you are still here and the sun is still outside, and you are the one who decides when to knock the wall down. That shift, that tiny, internal click where you stop being a victim of a breakup and start being the architect of your own peace. That is the moment the healing actually begins. But there is one more trap. There is a specific way we pick our next partners that ensures we end up right back on this floor in 6 months. It's a pattern most of us have been repeating since we were kids. That is what we need to talk about next. If this reaches you in the dark tonight, subscribe and join us. We explore the deep mechanics of human connection every single week so you can stop performing and start living. You aren't broken, you're just recalibrating. Check out our next video on the hidden pattern of why you keep choosing the same person in different bodies. Disclaimer: this content is for educational purposes only. Go be real.